Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of Around the Slice. Now that the initial waves of 2024 NFL free agency have passed and the big signings have come and gone, I kind of want to take a step back, have more of a laid back, chill episode, if you will. Just go position by position and take a look at what the Bills have done in free agency and recap everything all the way from quarterback to safety to, of course, and with special teams. I would like to look at we're going to look at today what they have, they mean the Bills, what they have, what they need, and specific targets in terms of names, in terms of free agents that are still out there, because there's still a decent pool. One position in particular really worries me. More positions have a more abundant, attractive names, I would say, than others right now. And of course, on that path, we'll go through a few draft targets because we are pretty much, once we hit next week's, we will be pretty much a month out from the NFL draft. I cannot wait for our prep with that and just the draft is honestly like Christmas for me. Um, it's great. So, anyways, and then at the end, I will give you my top five needs in order, one through five, of recapping just before we head out of this episode in a nice, concise one through five order of our needs, meaning the Bills, of course, again. So, without further ado, let's get into that. But before we do get into that free agent stuff, we have a move that I was very much anticipating basically since the day the season ended. The Buffalo Bills have signed nickel slot cornerback Taron Johnson to a 3-year, $31 million extension. That is 10.3 per year. So obviously Kenny Moore. I mean, this comes pretty much directly a week after the Kenny Moore extension with the Colts. He was a free agent, but they brought him back. Kenny Moore also probably there's three slot corners now. Not every team has like a slot corner that plays on a down and down basis, if at all. But three slot corners that I think are 1A, 1B, 1C. I don't really think they're like 1, 2, 3. They're 1A, 1B, 1C to me. They're all in the same tier to me. Order them however you want. I don't care. Same tier, like I said. I think that's Taron Johnson of the Bills, Trent McDuffie of the Chiefs, and Kenny Moore of the Colts. And Kenny Moore is important because last week he signed a 3-year, $30 million extension to return to Indianapolis, return with the Colts, and he'll probably be there his whole career, at least for the next 3 years. So 3 years, $30 million for Kenny Moore. That's $10 million per year. And Taron Johnson came in a tick above that. 3 years, $31 million. That's $10.3 million per year. And then Trent McDuffie, like I said, 1A, 1B, 1C situation. Trent McDuffie, once he's contract extension eligible next offseason, he'll probably get 11, 12 per year. And I honestly thought Taron Johnson would get 11, 12 per year. So this is great for the Bills. Not only does it, this sounds crazy to say because Taron Johnson is just turning 28 in July. So April, May. So in merely 4 months, he'll only be 28. But it's crazy to say, but he is the wily vet, if you will. He is the grizzled veteran in the secondary because Christian Benford is only going into year 3. Rasul Douglas, he's a veteran. He's 31, going on 32 years old. But he's only about going into year 2 with the Bills, his first full year after we traded him for him halfway through the season. Trey White out, Mike Hyde out, Jordan Poyer out. So really, it's Taron Johnson to lead these guys. So he is. It sounds weird to say because, like I said, he'll be 28 in July, still under 30, but he's the grizzled, wily veteran, if you will. So not only does this tie one of Buffalo's, arguably over the last 3 or 4 years, I've arguably their best defensive player, and he really held the fort down. He suffered 2 different concussions this season and was in concussion protocol weeks apart, mind you, but in concussion protocol 2 different times this season. Somehow he got back up. He's playing 6 days later. He's playing 4 or 5 days later in both cases. He didn't miss a game. But early in his career, from like 2018 to 20, he had these shoulder injuries because he wanted to play fast and physical, but he's not even 200 pounds. He's like 195 pounds. He was hitting like a linebacker, but he's in a slot corner's body, and he's only 5'11", around 195, 195 pounds, give or take. Sub 200 is my point here, is the point I'm trying to make here. So, and he got benched for a time being for a couple games stretched there in 2020 for Cam Lewis, and then he took the job back. The rest is history. I'm glad he finally got the recognition he deserved on the All-Pro team this season. I'm glad that the NFL finally said, hey, outside corners aren't the same as slot corners, but not every team is a slot corner, so let's recognize those special guys. Trent McDuffie made first-team All-Pro slot corner. Taron Johnson made second-team All-Pro slot corner. Slot corner has a lot on their plate because they cover slot receivers, tight ends, and running backs. And sometimes they can even buzz down as linebackers. And Taron Johnson has been known to come up in the box and be a hard-hitting linebacker, if you will. Now he doesn't do that as much as he used to because of his size and whatnot. And we saw the shoulder injuries earlier in his career. That was more the Jordan Poyer role this past or last year, I guess it would be now, 2023 season. Jordan Poyer did that, but now he's gone. So, and I don't think Taron will do that for a couple years now because Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams and Nicholas Morrow are there heading up the linebacker core. I know Tyrell Dodson left, but still, point remains they're over there heading up a really deep linebacker core. So I really like Taron Johnson, and you could argue the pillars of this defense going forward are still Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard emerging, Ed Oliver, outstanding season, should have made All-Pro defensive tackle. And now that Trey White, Hyde, and Poyer are gone, I mean, you have a damn good secondary now. And safeties you still got to figure out. So I'll just say corners. You have three damn good corners now with Taron Johnson in the slot, and then Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford on the outside. Listen to this. Now, PFF, they're kind of inconsistent with their grades, but all their grades should be put into context, kind of considering, PFF kind of grades on a scale of what the players asked to do. They're not just all graded against each other. They're kind of graded on what they're asked to do. They're hit or miss, inconsistent. But point remains that the Bills had three of the top, not the top three, but they had three of the top 12 corners in terms of coverage grades last season. Taron Johnson, Rasul Douglas, and Christian Benford. Three of the top 12 in coverage grades. Again, Taron Johnson, Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford. I think this league really, really needs to wake up and kind of I think Christian Benford, people say, oh, Christian Benford, he's replaceable. He could very well make the Pro Bowl next year if he has an excellent season. I'm not ruling out the cards here. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's not off there you go. It's not off the table for me. I don't know. I think the league needs to put, as they would say, put respect on Christian Benford's name. Yeah. And this also opens around, it's not exactly clear the exact numbers it clears, but around 5 million cap space, give or take 4 to 5 million, somewhere around there to open up. And that's good because you need that functioning cap space to sign rookies. You need about 5 million baseline to sign your rookie class. And remember, the Bills will get around 10.5 million. I think it's more like 10 million on post June 1st. So on June 2nd, they'll just magically get, it's literally like that, boom, magically get $10 million from in cap space from the Trey White release. So look out for that on June 2nd. I'm sure they'll be lurking. You can always get guys in June, July, August. Leonard Floyd was a mid-June signing. Look what he did. Now he's in the 49ers, but look what he did. We'll probably get a compensatory pick for him, I should say, rather. Ty Johnson, he was just signed as a camp body because, Damien Harris was getting injured in training camp, Latavius Murray, all that. So Darrington Evans, you need another one, and look what Ty Johnson did. I'm really glad he's back to be an RB3. We still need to fill the RB2 hole, but I'll get to that later on in a minute, I should say, rather. But my point is, Leonard Floyd and Ty Johnson are great examples. You can find that cap space. So to extend him now to free cap space is really, really good. And the Bills love doing this. Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, they reward their own players. Not many players that they pick high in the draft, first 3 or 4 rounds, really walk. Now, yes, Dane Jackson walked, Jermaine Emmons walked, but McDermott, they love rewarding their own players, and they especially really, really love Brandon Beane more than McDermott because he's in the financial side of it. GM, of course, general manager. Brandon Beane loves rewarding players a year early. Deion Dawkins was going to be a free agent next offseason, re-upped him a year early, huge 3-year extension. Now he's the 4th highest paid tackle in the league. Taron Johnson also was going to be a free agent next offseason, re-upped him. Now he's the highest paid /nickel corner in the league. Last offseason, think back to last offseason. I know it seems like forever ago. Last offseason, Ed Oliver was going to be a free agent this offseason, re-upped him to a huge 4th, I can't remember exactly, 4 or 5 years. I think it was 4 years. That was great. We just saw what he did. Monster, all-pro caliber season. And then Tyler Bass, yeah, really shaky playoffs, really shaky season. I don't know what happened there. Maybe it was Sam Martin the holding. Maybe it was some other things, him getting his own head. I don't know. But the point remains, he was an elite kicker before this year. I still have faith in, though, he was going to be a free agent this offseason. Brandon Beane re-upped him. So other than a couple exceptions being Dane Jackson and the Panthers and Tremaine Edmonds at $18 million a year going to the Bears, I do think he got overpaid, by the way. They reward their own players and more or less reward them a year early. I mean, I just told you over the last couple of years, this year and last year, respectively, what they've done. Now, and another thing before I kind of get off this Taron Johnson thing, extension, because there's a lot that goes into it. Sorry about that, but there's just a lot. McDermott loves, I mean, his specialty is defense, but his specialty is secondary. I mean, he's phenomenal at developing safeties and developing corners specifically. I mean, you look at Dane Jackson, what he turned a 7th round pick into out of Pitt. You look at what he's turning Christian Benford going in the year 3 out of Villanova, who's an FCS program, like very, very low level football. And then you look at what he did with Jordan Poyer, who was kind of this hybrid role. He turned him into an outstanding center field safety with amazing ball skills and high-end athleticism. Jordan Poyer, who was a corner in Cleveland and had all these injury concerns and this and that, comes to Buffalo and develops these guys. Even back with the Eagles, he developed some guys. I can't recall their names specifically right now, but I mean, he's and then what he's doing with Taron Johnson, of course, Kaiir Elam's still kind of murky out there, whatever. Although I think he'll have a bigger opportunity. I think he is solidified CB3 now with Dane Jackson gone. But yeah, and then hopefully he can make Taylor Rapp into something. And Cam Lewis, I mean, special teams ace, corner, outside corner, slot corner, safety, although I think he's clearly best at safety. I don't love some of those slot corner reps as being Taron Johnson's backup. But like I said earlier, at one point in time, he even benched Taron Johnson when he was dealing with those injuries early in his career in 2020 specifically. So I just love this move. Taron, he was the only guy, I'm not even kidding, the only defensive starter to not miss a single game this last season. Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, they all missed a few games here and there. Daquan Jones missed most of the season with a torn pec. Matt Milano missed all but 3 games most of the season with a fractured leg and a torn ACL. So Taron Johnson, concussion protocol be damned. Concussions be damned. He was there game in and game out. I really, really like this move. And for a guy that's only, 5'11", 195, he's very physical at the line. He's great in coverage. And now, like I said, per PFF, the Bills had, and they still have, the top 3 out of the top 12 corners in terms of coverage grades in Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford, and then Taron Johnson, the slash us Nichols. So I really like that. Anyway, now that we're done with that, let's go position by position. What do we have? What do we need? What are some free agency names still out there? What are some draft names in terms of our early round picks? Quarterback. We got, obviously, Josh Allen, superstar. We don't need to talk about him. I mean, let's face it, I don't want to be all sentimental here, but let's face it, he is kind of the reason that inspired me to be this podcast. Now, listen, my dad, obviously, diehard Bills fan as well. I was always inherited being, I don't know if inherited is the right word, but I was by default a Bills fan because of him, and I kind of grew up around the Bills, but like I wasn't really a diehard Bills fan until I got into high school. And I kind of got into high school when I was in 9th grade. Josh Allen was drafted, and I started consuming all these podcasts, all these articles. And then here we are years later, and I'm doing my own podcast around the slice, of course. I appreciate all the support, just kind of to bake that in there. But Josh Allen is the reason why I became a diehard Bills fan and NFL fan in general, but more specifically the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I'm thinking about him 24/7 because of Josh Allen. This podcast is really because of Josh Allen. So, I mean, he's a freak of nature. I don't think this is a hot take. I know people that hate Josh Allen are going to hate this take. Don't care. I think Josh Allen, for my money, is one of the most athletically gifted quarterbacks in the history of the league. Yes, you heard me right. I think Josh Allen, in my opinion, is one of the most athletically gifted and pure gifted quarterbacks in terms of talent in the history of the NFL. I mean, you see what he's doing on a weekly basis. I don't need to rehash it. Go back to the episodes where, now, yes, can I criticize him sometimes? That week one game seems like literally 100 centuries ago, ages ago now. But that week one game against the Jets, yes, it's easy to criticize him when the guy has 3 interceptions and one fumble on the night, on the game rather, I should say, 4 total turnovers. But the stuff he does, you have to take. It's like a roller coaster. You got to take the highs with the lows. You understand that he's never going to have under 12 interceptions a year. I don't honestly, frankly, I shouldn't say I don't care, but people are blowing it out of proportion that at 18 interceptions. Whoa, he's the top quarterback in the league because he had 18 interceptions. It doesn't bother me. Is your quarterback, other than Patrick Mahomes, is your quarterback making literally an inch of separation from the running the sideline and an inch away from the sideline, making full cross body, full throttle throws? I don't think so. Is he making bombs 75, 80 yards with a flick of the wrist? I don't think so. So we have that. Now a backup. I'm not as enthused with this as some of you guys are, but or I shouldn't say you guys, like not consumers of the podcast, but you guys in terms of like Bill's Twitter, Bill's Mafia. What a wild place, by the way. But Bill's Mafia on Twitter. Mitchell Trubisky's the backup. It's whatever. At least it's familiarity when he was here in 2021 in Buffalo. I mean, at least we don't have to play musical chairs again. I mean, technically it's a new guy, but like not really. And then QB3, practice squad guy. We never lost our 3 quarterbacks. So QB3, practice squad guy slated right now is Shane Buechele, former Chief. He was on the practice squad all season after Matt Barkley, the Giants and Jaguars, after the injury settlement with the Bills. So Josh Allen locked in. Victor Trubisky, I guess, locked in as QB2. Kyle Allen isn't coming back. He's still an unrestricted free agent floating out there, but if they haven't done it at this point, I have to say, rather, they're not going to do it. And then Shane Buechele. I'm still not opposed to drafting a drafting a 4th quarterback on day 3, someone like Jordan Travis from Florida State, Sam Hartman from Notre Dame. Although he's just really old for rookie. He'll be like, what, 25, 26? I think it's even 26 in July. No, 25. 20. I should know this because, Notre Dame. 25 in July. Huge fan. 25 in July. And then, Jordan Travis, Sam Hartman, Joe Milton, and some other guys that I think we could draft on day 3 and be satisfied with. But to my knowledge, I don't think under the Beane McDermott regime, I don't think under this, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or whatever, tell me on Twitter, but I don't think I'm wrong in saying that I don't think under this regime they've ever carried 4 quarterbacks in camp, because last year it was Josh Allen, Kyle Allen, and Matt Barkley, and they didn't sign Shane Buechele until they reached the injury settlement with Matt Barkley and then signed Shane Buechele. And even the COVID year, I think it was Josh Allen, Jake Fromm, and Matt Barkley in 2020. I don't think they've ever carried in the 7 years through a training camp / preseason, 4 quarterbacks. So that will be interesting. But I think through your 11 picks, you can draft a quarterback. You can stash them in the practice squad for a whole year, assuming another team doesn't scoop them off the practice squad. Scoop them up off the practice squad, I should say, rather. You can stash him on the practice squad for a year. Maybe he can become the QB2. My point being, I want to draft a quarterback on day 3 because I really want to get that guy. We can have cost controlled for 4 years, a 4-year contract, or with 3 years of being QB2. The first year is kind of not wasted, but stashed in the practice squad. And we don't have to keep having this revolving door of Mitchell Trubisky to Case Keenum to Kyle Allen, back to Mitchell Trubisky, and, Matt Barkley for stints here and there, and the injury settlement. I don't know. I just like to lay down roots, if you will, with a guy and kind of get him on day 3. So that's what we have. That's where my mind's at in terms of quarterback. Now, running back, this semi concerns me because I love James Cook. Don't get me wrong. Like let James Cook, all that against the Dallas game. I mean, Chef Cook, fire. I think maybe he's not already better than his brother Devin Cook was, like in his prime for that 2 or 3 years, for that like 3 or 4 year stretch there in Minnesota before now he's absolutely dust. I think he will be better than his brother was in his prime, Dalvin Cook, again with the Vikings in maybe just a year's time. So I love James Cook. I don't know if he can handle that volume again. He had 300 plus touches. He had think about that, guys. He had over 300 touches in just 1 year at the Bills between rushes and carries and end arounds and jet sweeps and all that. Over 300 touches. And then in college, because he was splitting with Zamir White at Georgia, he never had more than 200 touches. I think his high was like 175, 170 something. So he got like 130, 140 roughly more touches in his second year as a workhorse. So I love James Cook, but he's what, 5'11, 195, 190, somewhere in there. I know he's not 200. So he's 5'11, 190, 190s, mid 190s, I should say, rather. But that's why we need a bruising back. I love Josh Allen. He broke the record for most rushing touchdowns in a season with 15. It previously belonged to Jalen Hurts, who broke it in 2022 with 14. But I love Josh Allen, but he shouldn't ever be having 15 rushing touchdowns or even 14. I think not even double digits, honestly. I think 7 or 8 is appropriate. Get him on some read options. Get him on design runs. Maybe some runs out of play action, but not like tush push, snow plow. We all love that, whatever you want to call it. But we need this big bruising back. And there's one guy that's still in the market I'm looking at. D'Onta Foreman. Whether it's been with the Titans when he came in for Derrick Henry in 2021 for half the season when Derrick Henry broke his foot, or whether it's with the Panthers, or whether it's been with the Bears in that committee with Foreman, Khalil Herbert, and Roschon Johnson as a rookie, 5th-round pick out of Texas last year in 2023 season. He's been productive wherever he's gone. And he's kind of like a bowling ball, right? He's 6'1". He's 229 pounds, pushing 230 pounds. So that's really what we need. Basically, we need a downhill rushing element to this rushing game. Right now, our downhill rushing element is Josh Allen. So I love James Cook. He's more the elusive back out of the backfield. And I love Josh Allen, but he can't be our number one downhill rusher. And I love Ty Johnson. He's a mix of everything. He's speedy. He's athletic. He's good in pass block. He's great blocker and pass pro. Pass protection. Great blocker and pass pro. Can catch it. Speedy, athletic, power, run between the tackles, run outside. He can return it in the kick return game and be a punt returner, and he can cover kicks and punts. So he provides a little bit of everything. He's a mix of elusive and downfield rusher. He's kind of a mix of James Cook and what D'Onta Foreman would be if we were to bring him in this offense. But I think Ty Johnson was brought back. Now, who knows? He could be the RB2, but I would love for Ty Johnson to slot in at RB3 and maybe compete with someone else, maybe like a draft pick on RB3. But I would love James Cook to be RB1, D'Onta Foreman to be RB2, and then Ty Johnson to be RB3. I think that's a great trio to have. You have your elusive receiving shifty back out of the backfield in James Cook. You have your between the tackles runner on 3rd and short, 4th and short, 3rd on the goal line. Instead of that being Josh Allen, like be D'Onta Foreman at RB2. Then RB3, you have Ty Johnson for special teams purposes and do a little bit of everything. And then you're going to bring in competition, right? You have Darrynton Evans. So 3 spots. The Bills don't really ever roster 4 running backs. There was a thought they could roster a 4th running back last year when Darrynton Evans had that big preseason game. I think it was the final one, or I know for a fact it was the final one. So I'm really intrigued by Darrynton Evans, but I think if you bring in, you have James Cook, D'Onta Foreman, Ty Johnson, that's your top 3. And then you have Darrynton Evans, and I think a day 3 back like Audric Estime in the 4th round would be awesome. I mean, Notre Dame, again, I don't want to keep like pounding the table for these Notre Dame guys, but like he's a bowling ball too. He's 5'11", 230, and he is absolutely jacked. Like, I mean, jacked. Like, you watch him play, and for a big guy, for a huge guy like that, he is surprisingly, he's not the best receiver out of backfield, but he can do it. And once he's on the run, he doesn't have the best long speed because he only ran a 4.72 40-yard dash at the combine last month. So that's or a few weeks ago, just rather. So that's kind of whatever. But you're going to have 5 guys battling for 3 spots. I think James Cook, and let's just hypothetically say we get Dante Foreman, that's your two locks, that's your top two, and then you have Ty Johnson, Darrington Evans, and let's just for the hell of it, for the fun of it, say you get Audric Estime or someone of that ilk, a day three, fourth, fifth round running back, a day three running back rather, on this roster. So you have really 5 guys battling for 3 spots, or 3 guys battling for 2 spots, with Johnson, Estime in this dream scenario, and then Darrington Evans. But I really like the complexion of this running back room. Once we sign Dante Foreman, he's literally the only target I want right now for this downhill rushing attack style I'm wanting. Once we sign Dante Foreman, I'll feel much better about this because that's a great top 3 to have in Cook, Foreman, and Johnson. But you're going to add at least 3, if not 4 more backs to get you through training camp and preseason, because James Cook's not going to play much in preseason. A veteran like Dante Foreman's not going to play in preseason. So let kind of like other RB3, 4, 5, 6 even types battle that out in preseason. Next, I want to go to wide receiver. Now, let's say like 2-3 weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago, I would have said, oh my God, this is the number 1 need. What are we going to do at receiver? And then we added at receiver. Obviously, we still have Stefon Diggs as the 1. Let's just say Dalton Kincaid is the 2 because he's kind of a big slot anyway. But then we added Mack Hollins, who I think is maybe not way better, but a better version than Trent Sherfield. Okay, and I think Justin Shorter can learn a lot from Mack Hollins. Okay, and then you have a guy like, and then you get Curtis Samuel, who is not a splash signing, huge signing in the scope of the league, but for the Bills and the cap space they were working with this year, he's a splash signing for us, a splash signing in Bills terms. So this wide receiver room just 2 weeks ago was panicking. Now it's probably like my 3rd or 4th need, to be honest. And I think the signing of Samuel Hollins didn't push that need away from me, but Curtis Samuel kind of pushed the need a few spots down the pecking order, if you will, because I was like, wow, we need to go round 1 wide receiver or bust. It's a must. Now I don't think that it's in all caps must to go wide receiver in round 1 anymore. Yes, if the can't miss prospect is there, like a Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU or an Adonai and AD Mitchell from Texas, then like duh, you draft those guys. But if you can get one in round 2, like a Ladd McConkey from Georgia, in that scenario, you'd probably have to trade out from pick 60 because that's like basically end of the 2nd round. Pick 60 all the way to the early 2nd round. I would do that though for Ladd McConkey. You can get Roman Wilson from Michigan, who comps. I mean, he said it himself. He really watches tape of Tyler Lockett, and you see that comp a lot. Not the most athletic guy, not the most bursty guy, but a route technician, if you will. Or you can get someone like Ladd McConkey from Georgia and Roman Wilson from Michigan. Or if you want that route technician, I think the best route runner in the class, other than like the top 3 of like, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roman Dudes are all going to be most likely 99% sure top 10 picks. Then Ricky Pearsall out of Florida is probably the best route runner in this class. That's not like the top 3 guys, like the for sure top 10 picks. And Harrison Neighbors and Adunze. So I really, really I think we're done spending at wide receiver in free agency. Now, yeah, I'll get to wide receiver later on who would be strictly brought in or brought back, maybe a reunion with a certain player to be a kick and punt returner, but I think we're done spending in free agency. So ideally, here's your dream scenario. I think you have now. I'm not including Donkey Kid in this because yes, he's a big slot. He's still a tight end. He still gets paid like a tight end. His next contract, I know that's still 3 or 4 years away, but he's down the line. But he'll still be paid like a tight end, not top wide receiver money because he's not a wide receiver. You have Stefon Diggs as your 1. Let's say you have around 1. Now, if the value's there at pick 28, pick them. I'm not saying like you don't pick a receiver now because you brought in Mack Hollins in the 1st round. You brought in Mack Hollins and Curtis Samuel. I'm just saying that it's not a must anymore. It's not like 100% guarantee. Oh my God, you need to pick one. Like I'm not saying that anymore. So let's say you have Diggs as your number 1 receiver. Diggs is number 1 receiver, and then 1st or 2nd round pick. Let's say in this scenario, Roman Wilson, Led McConkey. Roman Wilson here, number 2. Samuel 3, Shakir 4, Hollins 5, and then 6 is like Justin Shorter / Andy Isabella / KJ Hamler, or a day 3 pick, like some size guy that can block for you really well, like a Cornelius Johnson, like a Javon Baker, like a Jamari Thrash from Louisville, someone of that ilk. So this is really, and then you still have Dalton Kincaid at tight end and James Cook at running back, and then just sprinkle in guys like Mac Hollins, like Dawson Knox, like Ty Johnson. In the dream scenario, keep going with Dante Foreman, downhill rushing ability. You see what I'm getting at. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense, and I think we have to stop labeling these guys. Joe Brady's going to figure it out. Like, as long as you have a bona fide number 1, I don't care what people say about his tweets that he wants out of Buffalo. I don't care that people say, he's washed, he'll be 31 in November. I don't care. I don't give a crap, frankly. I don't care. Diggs is still a bona fide number 1 for me. Maybe he's not like God tier number 1 anymore. Yes, is he getting passed up at younger receivers like CeeDee Lamb, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, those God tier guys? Yes, but he's still a bona fide number 1. But like Kincaid, Shakir, Samuel, this first or second round pick we're thinking of, like Joe Brady will figure it out. He really, so we don't have to keep labeling these guys. Oh, Diggs is number 1, and then this guy's number 2, this guy's number 3, this guy's no. As long as Diggs is number 1, Joe Brady will figure out the cluster. I don't want to say cluster after that. It's not a bad cluster. Having a cluster of guys is good, so we don't have to keep labeling it like this guy's this guy's that. No. Number 1 Diggs, he'll figure it out because Joe Brady really inherited Ken Dorsey's offense, because halfway through the season, Ken, you're out. So just like that, yeah, you're out. I'm sure the conversation was way more detailed than that, but in my mind, you're out. And then Joe Brady, yeah, he could sprinkle in a few things here and there. Yeah, he let Josh loose more times than not. Yeah, than Dorsey ever did. Yeah, he unlocked James Cook in the receiving game. But now he has a full offseason to put his blueprint on it. And he's here for a full free agency cycle in March. And he's here for a full draft cycle in April, and rookie mini camp in May, and then preseason and training camp in August. And then comes the season. So we got to stop labeling these guys. We can all relax. As long as you have a number 1, what you do we do in Diggs, then Joe Brady will figure it out. So basically, a synopsis: a receiver, like obviously, if there's Valen board, like I mentioned, Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, A.D. Mitchell from Texas, who I'm absolutely like gushing over every single day that I watch tape and see highlights of the guy. I mean, holy crap. Woo. And he's so speedy for his size. He ran a 4.35 40 at the combine at what? 6'3", 210 pounds, 215. Give me a break. 4.35 at that size. Holy crap. Anyway, so that's kind of my thought on wide receiver. I really like how it's coming together. Now, just 2 weeks ago, it was without a doubt 100% in my mind. Me personally, my number 1 need. Now, honestly, it's probably like 3 or 4 because some other positions, especially on defense, honestly have overtaken it. And we'll get this with the defense, but I'm not opposed to Bills taking a defense lineman at 28. I mean, I would have hated that before. I would have been like, oh my God, Brandon Beane, what the hell are you doing? But no, not anymore. So that's wide receiver. Tight end, there's not much to say here. I think you're perfectly fine here. Dalton Kincaid is your starter. I mean, I said I wanted to be nuclear. By that, I mean I wanted to be a huge fixture of this offense in 2024, but I wanted to see some of it in 2023. I kind of hate how it took Dawson Knox getting injured to unlock Dalton Kincaid, but that was just kind of like, I mean, I hate to keep bagging on Ken Dorsey, but like it was kind of Ken Dorsey holding him back, I feel like. But you have Dalton Kincaid your 1, Dawson Knox is your 2 for those blocking purposes. Quentin Morris, he's a receiver in college, converted to tight end. He's an undersized tight end. He's only 6'2", 230, 235 around there. So in height especially. But today's NFL, there's not really like those 6'6", 6'7" guys anymore, like those Travis Kelce or George Kittle types. Really, you're seeing more and more undersized tight end. I mean, Brock Bowers about to come in the league at 6'4", 235, 240. So Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, if you look at the old style tight end, they're undersized. but Quentin Morris, the tight end 3, is really undersized, but I don't care. And then the practice squad guys you had last year, Zach Davidson and Trey McKitty. And Trey McKitty, I still think has a lot of upside. So I think you are perfectly fine here. I wouldn't go out and sign anybody, and I wouldn't go out and draft anybody. I mean, you go 5 guys deep here. You have Kincaid, like I said, Kincaid, Knox, Q Morris, Quentin Morris on your actual 53-man roster projected right now. And then you had Zach Davidson, Trey McKitty, probably one, if not both of probably one of them will make the practice. And my vote is Trey McKitty, but we'll have to see. Next, offensive line. This is where I'm kind of concerned. Not with this. Well, the starting line, I am concerned. I'm not concerned about left tackle. That is Deion Dawkins. He's now the 4th highest paid tackle, not just left or right, but in general tackle in the league. I'm not concerned about right tackle Spencer Brown. If he has another year like he just had, he's mega payday coming. Like maybe not as much as Deion Dawkins, but like around there as a franchise right tackle. And then you have a guy at right guard like Cybo, it's like teammates and Josh Allen stuff. Cybo or Cyrus Torrance. So where I don't concern with those 3 guys. Where I do concern is kind of the interior movement here. The interior of the offense line. You release Mitch Morse, which I still understand. I've hashed that enough. You can go back to previous episodes, literally any episode over the last 2 weeks, and boom, you'll find my thoughts there. They release him, and their plan is to move Connor McGovern from left guard to center, and that opens up a spot off the bench for David Edwards to come in and start at left guard. I'm not really concerned with David Edwards coming in and starting at left guard. I wouldn't say I'm like blistering with fear here about Connor McGovern moving to center, but he's only played, yes, played a bunch of center at Penn State with Ryan Bates, who's of course now in Chicago, will likely get a chance to start at guard there. If not center, battling with Coleman Shelton, but that's off topic. He's only played in 4 years, in 4 years with the Cowboys, 1 year with the Bills, so 5-year NFL career. He's really only played center, 100 total snaps at center in the NFL. So I'm not blistering with fear, like I said, but I think that's going to be a big transition. I think a guy perfectly in free agency to sign would be Brian Allen to be the backup center. And then if it doesn't work, Connor McGovern, if it doesn't work after 3 or 4 games, because you don't have much time to waste here once you get into the season. But if it doesn't work for 3 or 4 games into the season, then you can say, hey, Connor McGovern, we're going to switch you back to left guard. Brian Allen, we brought you in to be our backup center, but now you're a starting center. And David Edwards, you're back to the bench, who I think is a starting caliber guard in this league, preferably at left guard, but you can play right too. But starting caliber guard in this league, bottom line, back to our bench. I think Brian Allen would be a great guy to have there. He's worked with Aaron Cromer for a handful of years, 3 or 4 years in LA with the Rams, I believe. Or not believe, I know he did. And he just got beat out he had some injuries, and then he got beat out by Coleman Shelton this past year and now went to the Bears. So maybe the Rams they just signed a bunch of they got their pillars with Steve Avila, Jonah Jackson, Kevin Dotson. They all paid him big money except Avila going into year 2 out of TCU. What 3rd round pick, I believe, whatever. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Brian Allen. And then, so I'm really concerned about this depth, like starters. Kind of concerned with the whole McGovern and just the transitioning, but bringing David Edwards off your bench and trading Ryan Bates to the Bears, your depth is really being stressed here. And the Bills were only one of 3 teams, I believe, last year to have all 5 starting offensive linemen in continuity gel together and start all 17 regular season games for them, and honestly into the playoffs. So, sorry, I'm pulling up my free agency targets document for the Bills on my phone, if you see me looking at that. But I'm really not as concerned with the starters. Yes, the McGovern left guard to center transition, but you bring up David Edwards and you take him off your depth, and your depth now is Alec Anderson and then Tommy Doyle coming off a torn ACL, 2 in a row, mind you, and Ryan Vandermark, who is your interior depth is Alec Anderson at guard, and then your tackle depth is Ryan Vandermark and Tommy Doyle. So that's not impressive. Those guys are great, but those are fringe roster guys. In the case of Ryan Vandermark and Alec Anderson from 2022, they were both undrafted free agents. And then in the case of Tommy Doyle, like I just said a second ago, He's coming off 2 torn ACLs in a row. He's been in the NFL 3 years now, and he's torn his ACL twice in 2022 and 23 respectively. So here's just some depth options. I'll note if they can be a starter for us. Offensive tackle, Charles Leno, I think will be too expensive because he's probably a starter somewhere, ex-commander. Dwayne Brown, probably take him off here. I wouldn't surprise if he retired. Donovan Smith is like a May, June edition. I think would be really good. He proved that he's not, the Chiefs signed Jawan Taylor that huge contract last March for free agency, and then Donovan Smith, not as big, but still pretty big in their eyes, and it was a disaster. Jawan Taylor's have a false start every 2 seconds. He's lining up illegally. Most times he gets away with it because he does both, and the refs don't see it. It's kind of annoying. But Kendall Lamb is the one I'm really interested here for tackle depth. He's your swing tackle. Deion Dawkins gets injured at left tackle. He slots in at left tackle. Spencer Brown gets injured at right tackle. He slots in at right tackle. And you take away offensive line depth, maybe even potential be a starter from the Dolphins in your division rival. They lost, they re-signed Robert Jones, but they lost Robert Hunt. They're going to lose Connor Williams at center. They have Aaron Brewer at center now. They re-signed Isaiah Wynn, but they got a lot of transition at the offensive line for Tua Tagovailoa over there. And then Josh Jones, and Cam Irving. But my one guy, I would say Kendall Lamb. I think you need to sign a couple of these guys because you can never have too many offensive linemen. It's rare that the Bills, all 5 of them started all 17 games for them last year. Interior offensive line, like I said, Anderson, that's literally it for the interior. I mentioned Brian Allen. Bring him in. I think it's a no-brainer. Eventually, he's going to come in. But other than that, I got Michael Dieter, who can play center guard versatility. He's probably best suited at center, so maybe not. Maybe you would rather have Brian Allen for that. And then Dalton Risner, who just seems to float around for the last couple of years until like June. He literally signed with the Vikings in June, although I think he's going to go back there because their depth and maybe even a couple of starting spots are really being stressed there. The one guy predictably I think will happen is Brian Allen. So, yeah, that's my for offensive tackle, I'd love Kendall Lamb. And for interior offensive line, I would love Brian Allen. Again, backup center for Connor McGovern. But if it doesn't work out, then he could be the starting center, and Connor McGovern goes back to left guard, and David Edwards, unfortunately, goes to the bench, but that just elevates your depth even more. Next, that's the offensive side of the ball. Next, we got defensive line. I'm going to separate this specifically into defensive tackle and defensive end. Defensive tackle. Whew. We're really stressing here. We're really stressed for bodies here. You got Ed Oliver, massive contract extension last offseason. Looks like a bargain for Brandon Beane, Big Baller Beans they call him. This time of year, and then you had Daquan Jones, who I think got right around his market value. What was it? 2 years, 18, something like that. 9 a year. So yeah. But other than that, Jordan Phillips probably headed for a timer. I literally don't care. The guy, all he does is, waving his arms, let's go, blah, 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 hyping up the crowd and getting boneheaded late hit penalties and not supporting anything at all. I mean, the drop off from Ed/Daquan to Tim Settle, Poona Ford, and Jordan Phillips was so drastic. Poona Ford went to the Chargers, probably going to start there. And then Poona Ford went to the Chargers, and then Tim Settle went to the Texans. Probably going to start there too because they just traded Malik Collins to the 49ers. 7th round pick. And then Sheldon Rankins just went to Bengals on somewhat of a semi-big 2-year deal. So we need help here. And you know how much Sean McDermott loves to rotate that defensive line. I mean, a single player doesn't play above 60% of snaps. And even like 60, 65% is rare. That's only for like Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau, if that. So there's like one defensive tackle I'm in love with still, and that's Tyler Tart. I was going to say Sebastian Joseph Day, but just this morning after visiting with the Titans yesterday, he signed with Tennessee with the Titans, but he visited the Bills over the weekend. I think it was Saturday, I believe. And, of course, they didn't get him. Tyler Tart, and then Austin Johnson formerly of the Chargers last year. I don't think he's going back there. Yeah, they signed Poona Ford. I mean, I guess Poona Ford wouldn't stop me from re-signing him. They're probably going to draft one like Chris Jenkins or Jer'Zhan Newton or someone like that. So I don't know. But it's getting slim here. Tyler Tart and Austin Johnson because Daquan Jones was recruiting. I guess you could call it recruiting Austin Johnson on Twitter. He said, imagine how good he would look, how we would look in a Bills uniform. So Predictably, we probably sign him, but Tyler Tart is the only one I'm still in love with. But this is getting slim. Like, they're probably going to need to make a trade for a defensive tackle at this point. And then defensive end, you have Greg Rousseau and AJ Epineza is probably your starters. But like I said this before, I love AJ Epineza and Howie's trajectory, but it took him 3 years going on 4 years. So it took him to his fourth year in the NFL to really do anything. His third year showed some flashes, but was too inconsistent. His fourth year in the NFL, he really broke out with 6.5 sacks. He probably could have had more. Actually, I know he would have had at least a couple more, maybe even pushing 10 if Leonard Floyd wasn't there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Leonard Floyd being there was a negative thing, but also AJ Epineza fractured his ribs. That's no small thing, and it forced him to miss like 2 or 3 games in the month of December towards the end of the year there. And once he came back, he actually wasn't the same. So, but I don't view him as like an every snap starter. Von Miller was taking away snaps from him last year at certain points, and I was getting so frustrated because Von Miller, like, what can you expect from him at this point? So, and then Kingsley Jonathan, I mean, they, what's the phrase? Some like future success or past success is an indicator of future success. And if that's the case here, Kingsley Jonathan really hasn't had any success in the NFL. He's a nice speed pass rusher. He's like a younger Shaq Lawson. Speaking of Shaq Lawson, I need like re-sign him immediately. And I mean, this isn't really anything significant, but we signed defensive end Casey Toohill. I think it's Toohill. We signed defensive end Casey Toohill, formerly of the Commanders last year. And honestly, he was a 7th-round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2020 draft. Sorry, I was thinking there. 2020 draft. And then they cut him halfway through the season, and he spent the next 3.5 years with the Commanders. Never started, but he started what? 11 games for them, or not 11. 8 games for them last year in the 2023 season. But I don't think that's because of his talent. Like, that was just because they traded Chase Young to the 49ers at the time, and then Montez Sweat to the Bears went on to get a huge extension with them. So I'm really like not impressed with that signing. Like, that's a fringe roster guy. Like Shaq Lawson, Kingsley Jonathan, Casey Toohill. Like, assuming they bring back Shaq Lawson, like Shaq Lawson, Casey Toohill, Kingsley Jonathan. That's like battling out for like the 5th, 6th defensive ends if you go heavy and carry 6 defensive ends. But like, I don't know. We really need some help here. The only ones I can trust are Greg Rousseau and AJ Epineza. I don't know what the hell to expect from Von Miller. He took guarantees out of his contract. I feel like he knows this is a make or break year for him. I don't care what he like, unless he has like 15 sacks or something. I'm fully expecting them to move on from him as a post-June 1st cut next year. So I think by June of 2025, he'll be gone. But like, I know that might be a hot take, maybe not though. But here are some defensive ends. It's getting slim as well. Emmanuel, I have 2 that would really be like for sure guys that I would love. Like, Travis Gibson is that nice like rotational guy. The dynamics with him are kind of weird. Chicago gave him permission to seek a trade in August last summer, but around roster cut time, but then they just ended up cutting him, and then the Titans picked him up, and then towards the end of the year, the Titans cut him and Tyler Tart. Tyler Tart went to the Texans. I don't think Travis Gibson went anywhere to play in the playoffs, so it's just weird. So Travis Gibson, but Emmanuel Ogbah, more Dolphins players, more Dolphins intel, kind of like the Kendall Lamb situation at tackle. But Carl Lawson, another different, I just didn't realize that Ogbah and Lawson, 2 division rival teams. Ogbah, formerly of the Dolphins. Lawson, formerly the Jets. But Lawson kind of fell out of favor. They're always trying to replace him the last couple of years. They had Bryce Huff, who's now gone. They had Jermaine Johnson. They had Will McDonald. And Robert Saleh loves to draft those rotational defensive ends and defensive linemen in general. They just signed Javon Kinlaw. They just re-signed Solomon Thomas, who can play inside and out, defensive tackle and edge, depending on alignment. But Emmanuel Ogbah, but most importantly, Carl Lawson. I'm going to pound the table for Carl Lawson to be like our 3rd/4th defensive end on this team. Because like I said, you can only depend on Greg Rousseau and AJ Epineza as it currently stands. Kingsley Jonathan, 5th or 6th defensive end. Von Miller, I mean, you would hope he's the 3rd or 3rd defensive end. You would hope he's starting as number 1 defensive end, but we know that ain't happening. So I think Casey Toohill, whatever that's worth, Shaq Lawson, and Kingsley Jonathan will be battling out for those 5th and 6th defensive end spots. But I think you need to re-sign Shaq Lawson, sign Carl Lawson, no relation. And then draft like a third or mid-round guy, third or fourth round in the draft. So it's getting thin on defensive linemen, defensive tackle, and defensive end. I'll say my top 5 needs in order to end, but there's going to be high up there for sure. Then linebacker, I do think we're set here because you have Matt Milano at weak side linebacker, Terrell Bernard at middle linebacker, and then for LB3, you're going to have Dorian Williams and Nicholas Morrow battling it out. And I think whoever loses the LB3 battle will be a key special teamer for this team. So if Dorian Williams is LB3, then Nicholas Morrow will play special teams quite a bit. If Nicholas Morrow wins the LB3 job for this team, Dorian Williams will play special teams quite a bit. I'm not handing Dorian Williams LB3 though. So after thinking about it more, I don't love this Nicholas Morrow signing, but as I've kind of researched more, I understand it more and more because Dorian Williams, high energy player, athletic, but his processing when he's told to pick up the blitz, when he's told to process in coverage, when he's told to turn his hips, all that, which a linebacker should do. He's going to year 2. He's not good at that at all. His processing is pretty bad. Nicholas Morrow, I think him and Tyrell Dodson are the same. And Tyrell Dodson went to the Seahawks 1 year, $4.5 million. I thought he was worth $2 or $3 million at most, but once Nicholas Morrow was signed to the Buffalo, to be a member of the Buffalo Bills, Tyrell Dodson was all but gone. And then you have Baylon Spector as LB5. But the Bills, without fail, always roster 5 linebackers. Right now, you only have 5 for 5 spots. Usually carry 7 and go heavy 8. You usually carry 7 or 8 in training camp. So you're going to see 2 or 3 more additions here, like a late round pick, maybe a couple June, July, August signings, something like that. At linebacker, though, I think we're good for now. I wouldn't sign any more in free agency, at least in terms of my targets, but I would draft 1 or 2 in the later rounds. When you have 11 picks, so go for it. Corner, I think this need in terms of draft media is kind of overblown. Not kind of, it is. Mel Kiper had a mock draft this morning, and I feel like as he's getting older, Mel Kiper isn't as innovative as he once was. He's not, I don't think he's put as much thoughts into his explanations as he once was. What I'm getting at is he had the Bills drafting TJ Tampa, corner from Iowa State at 28. First of all, I don't think TJ Tampa will even go in the first round. Or probably mid to late second round pick. That's a really good value for him, but not first round. And his explanation was, well, the Bills turned over their safety room recently over the last couple weeks. And then he turns around and gives us a corner. I think we're really good at corner. Sure, could you get 1 or 2 more depth guys to play special teams, to get on the kick and punt block team, to cover and run down kick and punts is what I'm trying to say. Sure, but your top, I'm not including Taron Johnson / nickel corner. I discussed that at the extension in the beginning. But your top 3 outside corners are Christian Benford, CB1, Rasul Douglas, CB2, and now that Dane Jackson's gone, Kyrie Elam, CB3. So I think if you sign a lower cost veteran that can be really good for you and draft somebody on day 3, because I think that'd be really good. A couple guys I'm looking at in free agency are for special teams purposes, because your 4th, 5th corners are going to be special teamers. I think Kindle Vildor, who's been with the Bears and Lions, he actually started for the Lions for a good chunk of last season because opposite of Cam Sutton, they had nobody. Brian Banch was playing slot corner / safety. The opposite of Cam Sutton, they had Jerry Jacobs and Kindle Vildor splitting. But Kindle Vildor and Justin Bethel would be really good. But if I really want a backup for Taron Johnson who can play special teams, but also fill in for Taron, Siran Neal never was that, and he got cut and went to the Dolphins for a reason. So I think Christian Fulton would work that as well, and I've kind of come around to that idea. A safety, I don't want to spoil my top 5 needs, but this is going to be very, very high up there as well, because right now it's just Taylor Rapp, Cam Lewis, and Damar Hamlin at safety. That is literally it, guys. So Taylor Rapp was brought back. My dad, some of my family members, a good chunk of them, a lot of them are really big fans of Taylor Rapp, and I'm just not. I understand the appeal, but at the same time, I really don't, because I think he's really good physical tackler, but too physical at times. There's a lot of friendly fire there when he tackles, when he goes downhill. when he makes behind the line of scrimmage. That's great plays, but he either injures himself or most time injures his own teammates. He nicked up Micah Hyde a few times. I don't want to say he directly, but like he contributed because he's just got to slow down. So, and his coverage isn't that good. Like, I don't say it's a liability. He has some good coverage reps here and there, but I think he was better on the Rams, his Rams career, but with the 1 year with the Bills. So I'm not as high. And honestly, if I'm being frank here, like, I like Cam Lewis more than Taylor Rapp. I think I've been on record on this podcast saying before, towards the end of the year, and looking at our free agents before free agency actually hit, that I want to resign Cam Lewis to have a crack at it, to a chance to be a starting safety. But that was only in the scenario that Jordan Poyer would return. I fully expect my guy to retire, and I still do. I'm kind of surprised as days goes on that he hasn't said anything yet, but I really wanted Cam Lewis to have a shot, but that was only with Jordan Poyer. So now it's like Taylor Rapp and someone else I want. And then Cam Lewis can be that ace special teamer, but maybe the backup to Taron Johnson. But I think as your third safety, he's really, really good. So a couple targets here. Obviously, Justin Simmons, number one. Like, he's in a tier of his own, but I think it's going to be not way too expensive for us. We could always make it work, but too expensive. And then it's kind of dwindling this. Eddie Jackson, I'm kind of lukewarm on. He is aging. I want someone under 30. Again, Justin Simmons would be the only exception because he did just turn 30 a couple weeks ago in March. So, yeah. And then another guy I want, scrolling down the list here, Julian Blackmon, who did, again, did visit the Bills yesterday being Monday. And then you have Mike Edwards of the Chiefs. I'm not as big as a fan of that idea, but he did at least visit. But my number one target here is Julian Blackmon. Next, kick and punt returner. I think you need a kick and punt returner because Khalil Shakir can do kick and punts. He did it at Boise State as a returner, but he's going to be a big feature part of your offense. So do you really want to risk injury with that? I think Ty Johnson is fine. I don't think he's as elusive as in the return game as some other guys. So I have 3 targets to be the returners here. Wide receiver Jalen Guyton, who can be like a nice 5th, 6th receiver as well. And then safety Ashton Davis. I think you sign Ashton Davis and Julian Blackmon so Davis can learn from Taylor Rapp, Cam Lewis, and Julian Blackmon in this dream scenario, in my personal scenario here. And, he can be a returner. And then wide receiver Deontay Hardy, really familiar name. He's remembered most for taking back kick and punts, or taking back that 99-yard kick return touchdown against the Dolphins that tied the game, propelled us to win the AFC East and help us for the 4th division title in a row. But I would say, dude, if you're coming back, like Joe Brady and Sean McDermott got to tell him, you're not really going to be fitting into the offense. Like, that turf toe affected you more than we thought last year. So you're just going to be a kick returner. So kick and punt returner, I would bring on Jalen Guyton, Ashton Davis, or Deontay Hardy. My number one target here, though, would be Jalen Guyton. And then for safety, I would get 2, double dip here in free agency. I would get Ashton Davis as that more young developmental guy. Then Julian Blackmon, because to go along with Taylor Rapp's physicality, I think you need. Now, Blackmon was a 2020 third-round pick out of Utah, and he tore his Achilles in 2021, but that was a couple years ago now. And he's I look at Rapp as that Poyer replacement for that downhill ability, and then I look at Blackmon would be that center fielder Hyde replacement with way better coverage skills. So anyways, guys, I know this is a bit longer of an episode, but I wanted to kind of sit back and talk about the Taron Johnson extension, update our needs, go through position by position, and quickly before I get out of here, I want to give you a concise list 1 through 5. I didn't really think about this. I should have prepared this. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. But my number one need is honestly defensive tackle. Defensive tackle is probably our number one need. I mean, you see how much they like to rotate this line over there. And then safety is probably my number 2. So I guess it's technically 4 needs because safety and defensive tackle would be 1A, 1B. But for the sake of the top 5 structure, let's go defensive tackle 1, safety 2, and then defense end 3, same kind of philosophies I had before and some of the names I mentioned. And then I think offensive line depth, I'm really good with the 5 starters. Other than McGovern, so it's just center. I'm kind of skeptical of that. But offensive line depth is 4, and then wide receiver is 5. And then if I had to have an honorable mention at 6, I'd probably have running back. running back at 6, but Dante Foreman, come on over, baby. So anyway, as you can see, free agency has changed a lot from a Bills perspective. I would have had wide receiver, like not panicking, but I would have had a wide receiver I did at number 1 just 2 weeks ago. Now I have it, I just said number 4. So let's just go over that again. In top 5 needs in order: defensive tackle number 1, safety number 2, defensive end 3, wide receiver 4, and offensive line depth 5. And I'm really 6 honorable mention would be running back, specifically in RB2, and a few more bodies for preseason and camp. So, anyways, guys, bit of extended episode, but that's okay. I'll be back whenever news breaks or next week for the regularly scheduled episode. But hopefully news breaks, so I can talk to you again about that. But anyways, guys, just for some quick plugs here before we get out of here. You could follow me on Twitter at AWagner13. As soon as news breaks, I'm tweeting away, not just Bills, with all in March Madness. Obviously, I think there's actually games going on right now, Tuesday night, but I'll have to go watch those. But I'm tweeting away with instant reactions. You can follow the podcast on TikTok at Around the Slice. I don't just do sports in there and Bills. I actually mainly probably don't do sports and Bills because that's my coverage on Twitter. Again, at AWagner13. You can follow the show on Twitter at Around Slice. Around Slice, but TikTok, I do movies, movies, TV shows, all that kind of pop culture, entertainment stuff. And then you can, lastly, if you want to support the show on Patreon, it's just $3 a month. This off season, we're going to be doing position rankings like we did last year. So for just $3 a month, patreon.com/aroundtheslice. Anyways, guys, I'm going to get out of here, but thank you for kind of this laid back episode. Thank you for supporting as always, and I will see you next time with breaking news or next week, whenever it is. Bye.